Hey friends, thought it'd be fun to share with you all a process that I have found to work fairly well for creating multicolor prints that you want to use for an LED sign. So let's jump right into it. Generally, I will start in Adobe Illustrator. Most of the time, I create my own artwork, but I do have a graphic design background, so creating logos and vector-based imagery is something that I'm somewhat familiar with. If you're not, it's okay because there's a lot of great resources out there that you can find some of these files and use them to create your own multicolor 3D prints and 3D printed lights. So this looks like it would be a great one for multicolor prints. I don't have two AMSs on my Bambu, I only have one. You'll notice this is 5-color. So if I was gonna print this personally, I'd probably have to I don't know, do something like that or figure out what color to use for the background. Anyhow, let's go through this. So if you're not familiar with Illustrator, Illustrator is a vector-based graphics tool, and it creates what is called vector artwork, which is basically path or line-based artwork, which is mathematically computed. You can also export DXF and DWG files from Illustrator, which is compatible with CAD software and so on and so forth. So this is great because what we want is we want path information to bring into Fusion. Now, as I'm selecting around here, you'll notice there's like some weird stuff going on if I move some things out of the way. There's like the shapes are a little odd when I start pulling them apart, and that's because we want some overlap. I've learned that Fusion gets a little picky if you have one line directly on top of another line, it can run into problems. I mean, we are doing it in a couple places, like right here, the blue and the green are butting up right against each other. But hopefully this will be okay. You don't always have to do this. I think the reason I had to do this is this file I found online and it wasn't constructed super accurately where the lines weren't directly on top of each other. So let's jump over to Fusion. So what you would do here is you would export this as an SVG or go find an SVG, and then you can bring that into Fusion 360. Let's go ahead and start with a sketch, which you can create in the upper left corner. The way I generally start these out is I will create a rectangle on my canvas using a construction line, which means it's for reference only, and I will denote my build volume, which is 250 by 250 for a Bambu, and finish sketch. So I'm going to use this as a guide. This is going to be very helpful in a moment. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a component. So we're going to go to Assemble, New Component. The reason to get into the habit of using components is it creates individual timelines and collections of bodies. So if you're creating assemblies, you would create multiple components, which in multiple components you can have multiple bodies and timelines, and it makes your organization a lot easier. So let's call this N64. And you'll notice that the little radio button automatically switched to this N64:1. It adds that :1 automatically. And you'll notice that original sketch got a little opaque, and that's Fusion's way of telling us we're not working within that space right now, we're working within the N64 space. Next, let's go Insert, SVG, Insert from Computer, Desktop. There's my SVG. It's going to ask me what plane. We want it on the top. And it's really big, and this is just because the scale, I think it was in Adobe Illustrator. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of eyeball this. This is not an exact science. What we do want to make sure of is we give adequate space around the edges for the brim, because this is a big flat object. Your slicer is going to add a brim to this. So I'm going to leave some like ample space on the sides here, assuming that it's going to add like a 5 to maybe even 10 millimeter width brim. Okay, so we're going to say okay, and now here's our sketch. Now we can start extruding these bodies. The way I generally do this is extrude the bodies based on color, and that can help us when we bring it all out and then bring it back into our slicer. So let's do the green stuff first. So here you can see like how the lines are kind of a little a little funky looking, and that's because I wanted to ensure that we have overlap with the surrounding objects, and you know there's going to be some weird things like this. We got to zoom in and get that. Let's go like this, and we're going to get all of these pieces. Okay, that's one part of the, I guess we're going green. Sorry, not blue, we're going green. Just going to go with the flow here. Got that piece, and let's see, the last one is this kind of little ramp guy right there. Yep, okay. Make sure we got it all the way down here. Now I'd like to preface this with, again, if this logo was constructed really well, I wouldn't have had to like do these weird manipulations to it in Illustrator, but I didn't want to rebuild it because it's a pretty complicated logo. But this is how we can be scrappy and still get away with something. Oh, and I noticed I'm still in sketch mode. Let's see here. If I hit E key, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I was in sketch mode and I needed to get out of sketch mode. So I got to do this again. Back where we are, I got the selection back again. Sorry about that. Now we're going to go, I already hit the E for extrude, and we're going to go 0.8. So we're going to give this a width of 0.8 millimeters. You might be asking, why 0.8? What's the significance of 0.8? I have found that 0.8 is a good happy medium for diffusing LED light through normal filament, meaning not transparent filament or translucent, but normal like opaque, if you will, filament. Now, where the real craft comes in is depending on the color of the filament, you might want to do different thicknesses. For example, blue lets a lot less light through, well, a normal royal blue will let a lot less light through, royal meaning this, than yellow. Yellow lets a lot more light through. So yellow, if we go 0.8 on yellow, we would only want to go like 0.6 on the blue and the green and probably the red because they're about similar color values. And that's how you can end up with like really even coloring, or sorry, even lighting with different colors. And I'll show you a little trick here we can kind of mess with in Fusion to help that. All right, it turned our sketch off, which Fusion just does. And now I'm going to rinse and repeat, where I'm going to go select the colors and I'm going to extrude them so that we end up with our individual bodies inside of Fusion. Okay, so we've got all of our bodies. Now we could pause here for a moment and we could do some organization. And one of the things that also helps here a lot is to colorize this. You can hit the A key and bring up appearance, go down to plastic, and just drag a color over. Double click that color, and in this case I believe that is blue. So we'll change this to a blue, like a royal blue right there. And let's drag that to the other blue faces, which is that one and this one. Right click to duplicate, change it to red. And let's drag this to the red ones. Great, right click, duplicate, green. It's totally not the right green, but that's easy to fix. Let's go move this around like there, okay? And right click, duplicate, yellow. Let's move it over to yellow. Done. Let's drag it onto our tops here. Cool. All right, A key to hide. Actually, sorry, there you go. Okay, so that's helpful. And if you want to as well, you could go over here to bodies, right click, and say new group, and you could say something like, I don't know, green. And this will help you, again, just like further organizing your bodies. This will also help us when we go to export, because we want to export the like colors together. It's just going to be a lot easier for us when we come into the slicer. So I'm going to like do the fast forward mode here, and I'm going to organize these things. All right, welcome back. So we got our folders here. We've got green, blue, yellow, and red. And we can toggle these on and off. Great. Okay, last but not least, we need to make our face complete, and then we need to create the backside, and we also need to create our wall. So let's just, this is an easy one. We're gonna take the remaining area and we're gonna do E to extrude. Now, again, depending on what color you're using here, and you want to make sure light doesn't go through, you might want this to be a little thicker than the colors, you know, that are for the actual logo. Let's assume you're using black. 1 millimeter should be enough, but to be safe, you could do like 1.4, and just make sure it's, you know, actually, yeah. Let's do like 1.6. Okay. And you'll notice what's happening here is because we're extruding in the upward direction, it's thicker than our other pieces, and something weird just happened. Well, you know what it was is over here. See how the operation was to join? We want this to be new body like we were doing before, and there we go. Now we got our new body, but we got to fix our extrusion, like the distance that it's extruding, and there's multiple ways to do this. I probably should have just extruded everything down to begin with, and you know what, that's an easy fix. Let's do that. And while we're at it, let's add some user data, and this is magic. This will make updating your design in the future a lot easier. I know that word sounds very daunting, but let me show you what happens here. So we're going to go up and hit this FX button, and you have to be under the solid tab to see it. You can also customize this toolbar. Let's go add user parameter, and we're just going to call this like face thickness. And remember, we used 0.8. Okay, so face thickness 0.8. That's all we're going to do for now. Let's go back and edit our extrusions, and rather than using a fixed value, we're going to say, and we're going to use minus because we want everything to go down, minus face thickness. Okay. And I bet you're thinking right now, like, oh, I see what's going on. So if you wanted to change the thickness of everything, you could just change that value. Exactly. And if you want to make certain thicknesses different, but still have a solid baseline value, this is how you do it. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to go minus face thickness, and we're going to update all of our faces here. Okay, minus face thickness, great. And last but not least, okay, now this one, we wanted to be slightly larger, so we could go minus face thickness, which was 0.8, and we could go like plus, let's do plus 8. I'm sorry, plus 0.8 is what we want. Oh, no, we're going down, sorry. So minus 0.8, new body, okay. Sweet, all right. You can see looking at the bottom of it, we've got a little bit, it's a little taller, which is what we want. And now the other thing we can do, check this out. So if we go up to user parameters now and we change this, let's say we change this to like something crazy like 10. And you'll notice that everything kind of changed as well, which is super awesome. And now if we wanted to be real cool about it, instead of using like -8, we would use like a multiplier or some sort of expression to make this a ratio so that this, you know, height is always a ratio of the colored items. But anyways, we don't need to get into all of that stuff. Okay. All right. That's the colors. Hopefully you're able to follow with me there and see what was going on. And now we need to create our actual box for this. So we're going to turn off the bodies for the moment. We're going to go to our top view, and let's go and right click and edit our sketch. We're going to offset, hitting the O key, this outer pentagon shape 4 millimeters to give us some thickness. Assuming you're using black, you don't need that much thickness on the walls to prevent light from going through. If you're using a color like red or something else, you probably need this to be a little thicker, and or I think the Bambu does this because it's like a crazy advanced mechanism, like make these walls 100% infill, and that will actually, you know what? Yeah, that'll work no matter what, because our bottom layers are super thin, so it doesn't matter if we set the whole model to 100% infill anyways. Okay, so I digress. 4 millimeters. Okay, now we're going to offset slightly more from that one more time. And this is going to give us our tolerance to kind of have an inset or a recess so we can fit the back plate on, and it's going to be perfectly aligned. 0.2 tends to be a good range to slide pieces together. If you want some tension, which I actually haven't done with the Bambu, I'm going to assume you need to go like 4, I don't know, like 4.14 maybe, or like 4.12, something around there. I'm just gonna go 4.14. I'm not super worried. I'm just gonna super glue this thing onto the back. The other thing you could do if you want to get real fancy is you could create recesses and screw holes, which I've done that before in the past, but this isn't, you know, we're not going like full-blown engineering here. We're just trying to make a Nintendo 64 light, right? Yeah, so that's for a different time and a different place. Okay, now that we've got our additional sketches laid down, let's create our, like, I guess you'd call it our brim, right? Okay, so we're going to grab that area right there. We can turn our bodies back on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do another extrude, E to extrude, and we're going to go down 40 millimeters and minus. I have found that 40 millimeters, let's go join this time because we want to join this to that gray area. I have noticed that 40 millimeters is a good amount of distance to get a really good amount of diffusion. You don't really need to go much thicker than that. And you can even go a little bit thinner on this one because the LEDs are, in this case, going to be nicely dispersed around the edges just because of the shape of this object. But 40 millimeters is a good middle ground. You're pretty safe there. So let's take a look at our bodies to see what just happened. If I turn off green and blue and yellow and red, you'll see this body now. That's what we have. So like that's our kind of our frame, and that's perfect. That's totally what we want. And when we print this, remember, it's all going to be like fused together. It's all going to be one nice big flat face. All right, on to the back. Let's create our back piece. We're going to turn the bodies off again. We're going to go and select everything, but we're going to deselect the outermost and one step in. And oh, you know what? Actually, I'm sorry. We need to select all of this. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to create the bottom, just the flat backside. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, so got it all selected. Let's turn our bodies back on. E to extrude. Now what we want to do is we want to offset this because we want to move it down so that it matches up with our bottom edge. And the offset here, remember, we offset 40 millimeters before. So we're going to need to offset at least 41. So we're going to go minus 41. I think I got this right. And we only need our bottom face to be like a millimeter thick. Let's see where we're at here. And we want this to be new body. Okay. I need to go 42, I believe, because the face thickness. Oh no, I was in the right place before. You can see it just popped it down. So we're going to do 41. So what this is doing is it's offsetting the face down and then it's extruding it. This is great about Fusion 360 so that you can create these, you know, visual objects. And if we turn off, let's turn off that. There you go. You can see our bottom. Something else that can be very helpful as we're working through this is using section analysis. And this is really cool. If you go up to inspect, go down to section analysis, it's going to ask you where you want to place this section analysis. Let's turn off our bodies, turn off our sketch, and it's asking you what plane do you want to slice this on. I'm going to slice it on, what is that, the Z plane, and hit OK. And it looks like nothing happened, but if we turn our bodies back on, check that out. So it's slicing through our bodies, and now you can see like our little subtle thickness differences where the yellows are a little thicker and the others are all kind of the same width being a little thinner, and you can see the face thickness is slightly different, and here you can see great, our bottom face is matching up where we want it. So I'm going to leave this on for the moment. I'm going to leave section analysis on. And now we need to create, I want to create like a little bit of a lip down here so that we can fit this bottom piece into our side nicely so it fits together perfectly. Let's turn off our bodies, turn our sketches back on. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab everything. We're going to deselect that area and this area. And remember, this is like like 0.12 millimeters smaller than our kind of casing edge. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to turn our bodies back on, E to extrude, okay, and we're going to go offset again. We need to offset it. We're going to go minus 40. I think we only need to go minus 40 in this case. And then the distance, we're going to go minus 1. and you'll see what's happening. Okay, it's defaulting to cut. We want to go join, and I think I know what I did here. I think I went a little too far. We're going to go 39. Okay, there we go. And you can see we've got a little gap in there. That's perfect. That's what we want, so that we can fit this back plate onto the back of our light box. And in this case, you'll see here that it's set to join. That's right. That's what we want, and it's far enough away from this left, the like outer wall, that it won't join with that. It's only going to join with the bottom. So let's go OK. Nice. Now let's check it out. So let's go to our bodies. Let's turn off some of this stuff. And there we go. There's our nice back plate with a lip. We can fit it on perfect, and it should assemble nicely. All right, so one last thing. All right, let's go to the back. So we're going to go bottom. And I actually want it to be this way. Bottom, right click, and this is how you sketch on faces. Create sketch. Okay, so now we're on the back side. We want to have like a little hole here for a cord. And you could also make a hole for like a power switch if you wanted to. Whole other slew of things you could do. Let's go ahead and just make a hole for a USB cable, and I believe a USB cable is like, I don't know, I think if we make like a 3mm hole, that should do the trick. So let's go, let's make it like 3.2 millimeters. Great. And we're going to grab it, E to extrude. We're going to extrude it down, and cut is what we want. Great. We got our little hole there for our USB cable. All right. Next, let's bring this over into our slicer. We're pretty much done here. I'm going to rename this as the frame. I'm going to rename this as our back. And now we get to the point in which we are going to export. I probably should have saved this. N64, please save your work. I should have saved this in the beginning. If this had crashed, this all would have just gone bye-bye. All right, here's how we do this. You could go and export all of this stuff as one file and try and bring it in, but that works for smaller models. This one, we're going to export it in groups. And what I have found works best for this is to go over to the Utilities tab, and you see there's this like 3D print. So I'm going to turn off everything, and we're going to start with just the green. So if I go Make, and I say STL, yes, 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 OK, save it to the desktop. I'm going to call this green. Save it to my desktop. And if I preview it, yep, there it is. That's our green pieces. I'm going to continue to do this. Let's do the fast forward thing. All right, welcome back. We exported everything. Let's go over to Bambu Slicer. All right, here we are in the slicer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the files that are on my desktop. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And I'm going to grab them and drag them all in. And it's going to ask me, is this, yes it is. It's a multi-part assembly. And there we go. We got all of our parts in here. And now what we can do is we can go over to objects in our left panel, and we can start colorizing these things. So now my colors up here are not exactly correct, but you get the idea here. Like, let me just temporarily change some of these. Where in the world? I'm trying to remember where you change the colors for these things. There we go. Okay, let's make that one green for the moment. Let's make this one blue. And like I said, I don't have an additional AMS, so I'm going to have to kind of like wing this one. All right, so the back, let's do the yellow. We want to be slot 3, so I just hit number 3. The red, we want to be slot 4. The blue, we want to be, yeah, slot 1. Green, 2. The frame, let's make the frame maybe red, I guess, for me, in my case. I don't know. And the back, we want that to be red as well. And you want to print this face down, obviously. So if you just hit auto orient, it's pretty good. Nope, it didn't do it. Okay, so we're going to select this and we are going to rotate it. And we're going to rotate it along the x-axis 180. Okay, now it's face down. And our priming tower, as you can see, is in the way. So we can try and just go up here and go arrange. Yeah, that's not working. So let's move our entire object down here. Let's move our priming tower over there. Okay. And let's just slice it and see what happens here. Yep, so there we go. So you can see it added the brim. So it's a good thing we accounted for that earlier in the Fusion file. Now, one of the things you probably would not want to do is you don't want the back in here, so I'm going to delete the back. Hey, let me delete it. Let's go back to prepare, delete the back. There we go. All right, and now you can see in here, we've got the different thicknesses. Like I made our casing a little thicker, and if let's slice the plate again, and we scrub down here to the bottom. Disregard the flow. I don't even know how to turn that off. Somebody knows how to turn that off in the slicer, let me know. So let's play with these values. You can see that the layers are, so the yellow is getting thicker layers than the rest, which is what we want. And all things considered, we might have even wanted to go a little thicker, but whatever, you know. Okay. That basically concludes the modeling and the assembly part. The last piece here is to ensure that you get nice, clean prints on your first layer. A couple things you can do. One, go over to Quality, scroll down to where it says Wall Generator, and change this to Arachne. Arachne is a different wall slicing algorithm that tends to be really good about filling in small holes. Another thing you can do, go up and hit the edit button on your filament profile, change the flow ratio from 0.98. This is very subtle. You only need to change it a teeny bit to like 1.01 or something like that. You know, like try little steps at a time. I've used this exact value and gotten some really, really good results. And you would have to slice the plate again. And then obviously when you go to print, make sure that you're not doing what I'm doing. I don't know why does it add a brim around the prime tower? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, yeah, there we have it, multicolor print. And hopefully you will experience a nice smooth first layer. Here's an example of how I go about doing the lighting. You can see that I try and get the LED strip as far to the back side as possible, but still leaving, a good 1 or 2 millimeter gap so that the back piece that we're putting on the back side of our light will still fit in nicely and not collide with the LEDs. Additionally here, I'm using a pretty affordable RF remote that you can get off Amazon. Link will be in the description. So there you have it. Hopefully this empowers you to make some cool lights and keep on printing.